Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and ladies, if you're not feeling well, this might be something you could listen to while you recover. And if you are wanting to get something done in the home, it's also something that I hope will motivate you. As usual, always check it out, make sure it works with you. And if you and I were sitting across the table from each other having a conversation, I would probably filter out some of the things you said and vice versa, and we wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm not going to edit out everything, but if you find some things aren't really sound, then you can just ignore it and move on. And today I have a few things ready for you here. I would like to talk a little bit about getting ready. And those of you who can't get ready because you're not feeling well or you're just getting ready to retire for the evening and just needed something to listen to. This was designed to help people that wanted some company while they were doing real tedious things or routine type of things that they were putting off, cleaning out a drawer, sorting a box of papers, getting in their sewing room and cleaning up all the threads and zippers, or going through your books. That's my big problem, is the books. And so I wanted to start out by telling you that you need to be sure that you have your preparation, which I call prep. And that just means bathe and dress, get ready, get your hair done, and do some exercises and prayer, a little Bible reading, and maybe sing a little bit too. Just get yourself ready. And how about a little bit of exercise? I ran into an interesting because this is about exercise. Sure, I ran into it, of course. And I was looking up some stuff about Jane Austen and exercise. I will try to post this picture of the Jane Austen workout on the page. So if you're new here or if you're old here, please go to the page on which I have posted this video, so that you can also see the extra things on there, because I'm hoping to post that workout picture and a link to what I'm going to read to you today about the Jane Austen workout and the Jane Austen exercise, because she mentions the book I've been reading to you, Brian Kozlowski's the Jane Austen diet book, which really isn't a diet, it's a lifestyle book. And so I'm going to try to do that, but I wanted to remind you about this. And I had mentioned in the previous video about vacations and how to be more, how you can get more out of a vacation, and how you can not come home upset or depressed from a vacation. And I've been thinking about this ever since I came back from a little vacation, and thought about having a day vacation at home. And I would practice it at home to see how that worked out. And that is, first of all, preparation. And so the day before you're going to go on your little vacation, you get prepared. You get if you are sensitive to some kind of food and you need to have your own tea, your own water, and your own food, you pack all that, and you prepare it all. Because sometimes going away to some other place can upset your stomach. And as I mentioned before, royalty does not go and eat locally. They bring everything with them, and that helps, I think. And sometimes, we take children on holidays and then they get sick while they're there because they're just not used to it, not used to the food, the air, the water, even the water. Yes, I don't know if we ever thought about that. And they can get a little car sick too. So instead of using pills to help their equilibrium and keep them from being sick in the car, which I don't really believe in giving kids pills and aspirins and tablets and things like that. I think that would be more effective to teach them a technique that I was taught when I was really young, before they had Dramamine and before they had all these pills and stuff. Our parents said, we'd complain because we were in the back seat and the car was wobbling and we'd feel sick. And our parents said, just look straight ahead at the road. Don't look left to right. Don't look down at a book you've got. Don't write down anything. Don't look at each other. Look straight ahead at the road. And of course, some of us would have to be propped up a little bit in the back seat, but we had to look straight ahead at the road. And if you couldn't, you looked out a window and tried to look at the road. And that actually is a really good thing. It really helped. And I'm one of these people that nothing will work. People say, oh, try this, try that. And with me, nothing ever works for any kind of malady. But this worked. My dad said, just look straight ahead and look at the road. And when you look at the road out the window, don't look around at the scenery, nothing. Just look straight at the road. Look at the line in the middle. And so that's just a little hint that I had. You don't have to take it. Maybe it doesn't work for you. But this is just for your entertainment while you walk, while you work, or while you just sit there. And so I wanted to talk about maybe having a day vacation at home for those of you who just really don't like to go on a trip. You don't like the travel time. You don't like the inconvenience of not having things nearby that you like. Or sometimes it's real disappointing. Some vacations that we book and we find out there's no shopping area, or there's no or there's no desirable shopping area. Nothing that the town we went to maybe wasn't really touristy, so they don't provide a lot of things that would make someone relax on a vacation. So what you have to do is prepare. You take everything with you that you will need, and remember. So if you're going to have a day vacation at home, I think they call it staycation, you prepare the day before. And of course, you ladies, you get what you're going to eat so that you don't have to be standing over a stove or cooking or washing dishes while on your vacation. And you get everything ready, and if you've not spent money on a vacation, you can have a little extra and buy yourself a fancy bath towel or a new set of sheets or something just to make it feel more vacation-y at home. I recently bought one of those round tins of tea, and it was called Red Velvet Cake. And I thought I would do that just for a vacation at home. And the ingredients were dried apple bits and beetroot, dried beetroot and dried apple. I think there were a couple of other things, cinnamon in there, and just reminded me, looking at the little bits of things in there, it was a herbal tea, that you could probably make your own teas. You can buy these things called tea sacks and make your own teas, and then just dip them in water in a teacup. But just the thought that it was fancy and very luxurious just kind of added to that feeling of being on a vacation. So you prepare, you decide what you're going to do that day. If your vacation just involves doing some real quiet thing, some needlework, some reading, maybe going for a walk. And I mentioned before, when you're on a, quote, real vacation, not to abandon yourself, not to abandon your spiritual center, and not to take a vacation from God and from your responsibilities as a human being to be a decent person. Don't abandon your preparation, your appearance. Don't abandon your manners. And really, I'm hoping that a lot of young people will listen to this, because they go on a vacation without their parents for the first time, or with friends. That's the worst thing you can do, is go on a vacation with a pile of other people your own age, and because they throw all care to the wind, and they party hardy, and they think that that's a vacation. And you can do all that at home, you can do that with your friends anywhere. But they'll go to a nice location and they really don't absorb the atmosphere of that location, because they are listening to loud music, they're staying up all night, and they're also being very rude and bad-mannered in the area that they're in, and kind of throwing themselves around, they're throwing their weight around, as we used to call it. So you don't abandon good sense just because you're on a vacation. It doesn't mean you're taking a vacation from being decent or being dignified. It doesn't mean you're taking a vacation. A vacation was supposed to be something you did where you took time off from work. That's all it was time off for work. And what do? You would sit in the sun, you would go for a walk, you would spend a day not working. A time off from your labor is what it was all about. And you see this in the Bible several times. Someone pointed out to me once that Christ was found by the disciples at the shore, and he was cooking fish. Now, I wouldn't think cooking would have anything to do with a vacation, but he was having a picnic, and he had taken time away. Time alone, time away. Even Christ took time away from the crowds, from the noise, from people. So if you are on a real vacation, you're taking time off from the pressure, the noise, and you don't create new pressure for yourself. So you don't abandon your orderliness or your exercise. And if you're on a vacation, or maybe tomorrow will be your day off, vacation at home, and you can't find a place to have exercise, that you can think of creative. If I've watched enough of the exercise type videos that I have figured out how you can do exercise in a small space or when no one's really looking, and how to exercise and breathe and relax. And so you have to learn how to relax at home too. And having a day at home as a vacation is a wonderful example and experience that you can take, so that you know that you can do it. You don't have to get all tensed up at home from all the work you do so that you need a vacation. You need an expensive vacation. You can take a vacation at home. And one of the motivations for that is that you've got to get your homemaking under control and get your home looking like a place you'd like to be if you were on a vacation. And instead of a place that just brings on more stress and seems like it's hard. And so these are just a few of the things I was thinking about yesterday, and that is, you don't give up your dignity. And if you're not loud and obnoxious at home, and you don't party hardy at home, you don't need to do that when you're on a vacation. You can have a dignified vacation. And how many paintings have I posted here of people of the past, of the Victorian era? Some painter had been inspired to paint men and women walking on the beach, and they were just slowly promenading and taking in the sea air. But that was all it took. They didn't have to do anything too exerting or crazy. And so our ideas of vacation should harken back to rest, the word rest. And so if you're having a vacation at home or vacation somewhere else, remember to make that a day of real rest. And the only way that you can do it at home, ladies, is to prepare. Make a list and think about it and prepare so that you will have a complete day off. That's a day that you're not going to be cleaning the bathroom sink, and a day that you're not going to put in a load of laundry, and a day where you're not going to be washing dishes in the kitchen or preparing food, because you've got it all prepared. And you can also bring in your fancy paper plates and paper napkins and other things. Have a special, if you have children, you can get them a special, I talked about kits last time, things you can make. And or some special activity. You can go for walks. You can relax at home. In fact, when we were growing up on the homestead, there was no need for what they call vacations, because we learned to love our daily life. We know our walks down the road, and our picking up autumn leaves, and going wading in the lake, and just the sweetness of nature around us, or reading a book. We knew how to have a peaceful behavior. That was what my parents insisted on, was that we be peaceful, that we have peaceful behavior. So if one of the 7 of us was needed, or my mother found out that we were just reading a book, she'd leave us alone because she knew that was peaceful behavior and she'd rather have us reading a book. But if someone wasn't so peaceful, she would put them to work. And so when we went on holidays, when my children were younger, and we came across this problem where there were people that were taking time away from college. It was a college vacation, and they were very loud, and they disturbed our children's sleep and our sleep. I thought to myself that my parents would have put them to work because they weren't being quiet. So now today also, I'd like to read to you something about Jane Austen and exercise. And remember that any vacation you have, whether it's at home or at the beach or somewhere else that costs you money, it's not a vacation from being kind and from being loving to your family. And it's not a vacation from manners and decency and being courteous to people around you. So I wanted to read about Jane Austen because there was the exercise plan of Jane Austen, and then house moving. Because in a way, if you've gone away on a vacation and you've maybe rented a place for a few weeks, and it's in a residence or a lodge or somewhere like that, it's like moving. And sometimes it can be upsetting to some people in the family, and then some people just don't like to go on vacations because it's not home, and they don't sleep as well. So I wanted to read a little bit about that with Jane Austen's moving. But first I'm going to discuss the exercise, because I think there's a tendency when you're on holiday to give up the exercise part, unless of course the place that you are staying has a pool or has a place, that you can have exercise. And this was called Get Up and Move. And it was so inspiring to me. And she does mention Brian Kozlowski's book. So it's called Get Up and Move. And it's by Robin K. Floyd, January 6, 2021. And it's from a site called the Jane Austen Summer Program. I'll try to put the link there and also put a picture of these really unique exercises. And so she said, we at the Jane Austen Summer Program, and I'm not quite sure what that is. I've seen it on YouTube. Might be something I'd be interested in doing. We hope you had a festive holiday season. As we begin the new year, many of us are aiming to get more active. Jane Austen's characters were often on the move, walking most of the time. In his book, The Jane Austen Diet, Brian Kozlowski, remember he's an honorary member of my family, says that the Bennet sisters walk 6 to 8 miles a week, going from Longbourn to Meryton and back. Indeed, Lizzie is happy to walk the 3 miles to Netherfield when Jane takes ill. I would think back in the 1950s that would be nothing for us. To go a quarter of a mile was absolutely nothing for us. It was just a hop, skip, and a jump. But now I think people would find it very hard. But if you're a homemaker and you get one of those little wrist things that measure, how much movement you're making, or the one that you wear that shows how many miles you have walked in your house, you might find that you really do walk quite a long ways. Austen herself once wrote in an 1805 letter, speaking of letters, my granddaughter and I are going to try to write each other for a whole year and then put our letters together in a book. So we're going to do it Jane Austen style, maybe even use some of the quotes. Yesterday was a busy day with me, or at least with my feet and my stockings. I was walking almost all day long. I went to Sydney Gardens soon after 1 and did not return till 4. And after dinner I walked to Weston, which according to the Jane Austen Diet was about 1.5 miles away. Whether you are as rigorous with your exercise as Mrs. Norris and need a low-impact activity for your off days, or if you've been binging sweets while binging Bridgerton and need inspiration to get moving again, we devised a few simple Jane Austen themed exercise to bring you some variety to your routine, and they have it delightfully drawn out, sketched out. I'll try to put the picture there for you too. So this is called the two-handed book lifts. So I have a book here. So what you have to do is make sure you get a book that has some weight Here, this is a book that has some weight. What better way to incorporate your favorite pastime? Yeah, we all like to read, don't we? Quite simply stand and lift your book up to your face to read, and then down again. Okay, so this is the picture they have here, and you'll see it for yourself when you get the link. You lift your, let me just look at the picture here. You lift your book up to read like this, and then down again. Well, that's better exercise than many of us get, isn't it? So let me read about it a little bit more. Stand and lift your book up to your face to read, and then down again. Start with 20 repetitions using both hands to lift your book. See if I can do that. You know, that does take some, but get yourself a nice heavy book, maybe an encyclopedia. Those were pretty heavy, the encyclopedias. Get yourself a decent weight book. Start with 20 repetitions using both hands to lift your book. To add an extra challenge, try squatting as you lift your book. Okay? So the next one is one-handed book lifting. So this was two-handed book lifting. You know, this is a sneaky way to take exercise when you're maybe in a place where you can't do it and people think you're reading a book. So, one-handed book lifting. After using both hands, you are ready to lift your book using just one hand. We suggest 10 times on each hand, but you can do as many as you like. To add a challenge here, add a lunge for each lift. Now they have in the drawings the ladies dressed up as a, in the Regency costume. But yes, you could lift the book up like this, but I think they meant for you to keep it open, but I'm not sure. But with the one-handed book lifting, there you have something, they have a little weight there. The next one is the teapot. This is interesting. Place one hand on one hip and hold the other up like a spout. Okay, and then bend over and pour the tea. And we used to sing that song. Remember, those of you who are vital, back in the 1950s, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Hear me this and whatever. Tip me over. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over, pour me out. And that was an exercise in, I guess, kindergarten or grade school. And it was, when I get all steamed up, hear me shout, tip me over, pour me out. And that was I'm a little teapot. So place one hand on one hip and hold the other like a spout. Then bend the top part of your body at the hip, swaying side to side like a teapot. Then you change sides. Be sure to tip your teapot both ways. To add a challenge, try balancing on one foot as you sway. Well, those are pretty grown-up exercises if you ask me. So, surprise greeting. Okay, now this is pretty typical of, if you'll watch the 1995 production of Pride and Prejudice, you'll notice that every time someone comes into the Bennet house and the Bennet sisters are sitting, they just get up. And they get up surprised, like suddenly. Start this motion from a sitting position in a chair. Stand up and then bow. To make this challenge, instead of sitting in a chair, begin from a squatting position. I think I would draw the line at that, because I wouldn't be able to get back up. Now, here's another one. These are Regency exercises. Turn about the room. This one is the simplest of all. Stand and take a walk. If you could get up in the morning and just walk through the house. If you're having trouble with, I don't know, getting your thoughts to settle down at night, get up. Don't fight it. Just get up and just walk through the house. And hopefully you've left your house before you retire at night. You've left your house so that it's going to be pleasant to walk through it. This is one of the simplest of all. Stand and take a walk. If you can, go for a walk in the great outdoors. Yes. After all, I don't understand this last sentence. I'll just print it all for you and you can figure it out. We hope your New Year is full of good health and we look forward to seeing you all. So I will just print this for you. It's really cute. Then I want to discuss the Austens moving. And that can be very upsetting sometimes. Now, for some people who have moved from a noisier place to a quieter place, they often have hard time adjusting to that and sleeping because they were used to sleeping with the whir of the noise. And then when they get up in the mountains and they have a country home, they have a hard time getting used to it. So everybody has to adjust. Jane Austen had to leave her home behind several times in her lifetime, in some cases very reluctantly. Perhaps that's why changes of dwellings feature quite frequently in her novels, and as we will see, they are often more stressful than blissful. And I'm reading to you from Wives and Daughters, where Molly seems to have had to move from place to place because her father couldn't be home for some reason or other. So she went to the Miss Brownings, and then later on she went to help the Hamleys at Hamley Hall because Mrs. Hamley hadn't been well. And then Mrs. Cumnor, Lady Cumnor, wants her to go and stay at Ashcombe, where Hyacinth is the future wife of her father, of her widowed father, where she teaches a girls' school. And she just doesn't want to. She wants to go home. And she says here, as we will see, moves are often more stressful than blissful. The upheaval of a house move. Austen was no stranger to the heartbreak that goes hand in hand with moving out of a beloved childhood home. How many of you have done that? I remember when we moved from the homestead, because my father was an adventurous person, and he just one day, he'd planned it for a while, but one day we found ourselves out of there, going somewhere else and adjusting to not only a new place, but a new country. And so the adjustment was, which we never thought would bother us, was different. She had to leave the parsonage at Stevenson when her father retired. Mr. Austen, his wife, and their unmarried daughters, Cassandra and Jane, changed the country air for the city of Bath. A similar situation is portrayed in Sense and Sensibility, when newly widowed Mrs. Dashwood and her 3 daughters are forced to leave a home full of happy memories behind. That's why I say it's best to make your memories portable. And I quite like the idea that you can get this chart, this size chart, that you just hang up and measure your children as they grow instead of actually putting it on the wall, because you can never retrieve that unless you put a piece of paper aside it and then previously copy the dates and the measurements, which you can do. But making everything portable, to me, is very important, and that's one reason I don't get real heavy furniture. I like my wicker. I can move it around. I don't have to worry about getting help to move the couch to sweep behind it, and I don't have to worry about rearranging furniture. Move the coffee table is very easy. So I get little small pieces of furniture that I can take care of myself. This is how the Dashwoods, and Marianne in particular, bid farewell to Norland Park. Many were the tears shed by them in their last adieus to a place so much beloved. "Dear, dear Norland," said Marianne, as she wandered alone before the house, on the last evening of their being there. "When shall I cease to regret you? When learn to feel a home elsewhere? Oh, happy house! Could you know what I suffer in viewing you from this spot, from whence perhaps I may view you no more." And that's one reason why, having moved a few times, that I kept everything that I owned. I didn't start over with new, I put the furniture in the same spot if I could, so it would seem like the same house we moved from, to help the children adjust a little bit better and had the old familiar things around. House moves as during Regency go hand in hand with improvements and alterations, or at least minimal redecoration. When the Dashwoods first arrived at Barnton Cottage, Mrs. Dashwood has the intentions to carry out substantial building works. Her plans include a new drawing room and bedchamber, although the lack of funds means they never materialize. If you'll remember, when Willoughby came to visit and he remarked about the cottage, she said, "I have great plans for its improvement." And I wanted to just remind you, if you are in a house that isn't quite adequate and you're really hoping for something better, just to take care of what you've got the best you can. Use the time that you're waiting for to go through everything, clean out all the drawers in the kitchen, get everything really clean, so that if you do suddenly, it's interesting how moves are. Sometimes they happen quite suddenly. And those of you who have tried what was it called, Fly Lady, used to be Sidetracked Home Executives, and she helped you go on a schedule online, and she said in a book she wrote, always live and clean as though you were going to have to move suddenly. That is such a good idea, because sometimes the things that we are desiring come upon us quite suddenly, and we wonder, how could that have happened? We've waited so long to move. All of a sudden this opportunity comes and you're not ready. So get those closets ready, get things ready so you can be portable, so you can be mobile. And I'm trying to do that because that was such good advice. The lady that wrote Fly Lady, all her books, she just mentioned that you're going to have to act like suddenly you have to move, or that your house is for sale and that you're having to show it. That is such a good idea, because it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us alert, and don't get stuck in a mess, because it also makes you very depressed. And we want to shed light on dark days, like I read to you yesterday. And you can't if you're depressed. And if you get depressed, your house will fall apart. So that's why I say to get up and get ready, because that also helps to prevent that. So when the works do go ahead, they can take much longer than anticipated and cause a lot of stress to the owners. In Mansfield Park, Mr. Rushworth is consumed with the idea of improving Southerton. Mary Crawford, however, explains she dislikes home improvements on account of her prior experiences with property development. 3 years ago, the Admiral, my honored uncle, bought a cottage at Twickenham for us all to spend our summers in. This is the author speaking. And my aunt and I went down to it quite in raptures, but it being excessively pretty, it was soon found necessary to be improved. And for 3 months we were all in dirt and confusion, without a gravel walk to step on or a bench fit to use. That's the trouble with the members of the family that want to improve something. They make such a mess first. If you want a little step or a sidewalk or something, they make a terrible mess getting it in there. And often I was told, just don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. It's going to turn out okay. And we do have to put up with a little bit of a mess for a while. Very inconvenient, but it always turns out okay. But they sure do make a mess. Even if you're having your house remodeled, what a mess. And sometimes ideas for alterations come from other parties. In Pride and Prejudice, during his visit to the Pennants, Mr. Collins famously explains, remember he was great about going into details about his patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, how she advised him on how to remodel or take care of the parsonage. And here's what he said. She had once paid him a visit in his humble parsonage, where she had perfectly approved all the alterations he had been making, and had even vouchsafed to suggest some herself, some shelves in the closet upstairs. The Forever Home. In Austen's novels, house moves aren't always for the better, and one reason that I say to keep the little house where you're at, or the dwelling where you live, to keep it as best you can, because I always remember where the Bible said, he's faithful in little will be faithful of much, and how to be a good steward. The steward was someone that took care of something for someone else, and how to be a good steward of what you temporarily have, so that you might be found worthy to get something better. We don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Everything works out for the best, but to take care of it as best you can, for the sake of being faithful in little. Just, be faithful in little, and the Bible says he will be faithful in much. So to him who has, to more will be given. My fear is I'll be given more housework. I don't really want that. As well as the Dashwoods lost of Norland, we have Anne Elliot in Persuasion, whose family is also forced to leave the ancestral home. In this case, because of her father's poor financial management. Anne is so reluctant to move away from the neighborhood that she even suggests finding a small house in their own neighborhood where they might still have Lady Russell's society, still be near Mary, and still have the pleasure of sometimes seeing the lawns and groves of Kellynch. Now, I supposed in Persuasion that Lady Russell was not a good influence on Anne. She was portrayed in the movie as giving her bad advice. In the end, she has to resign herself to the idea of the family moving to Bath. You see her in that scene of one of the 1990s edition of Persuasion, where she's sitting there and they're all making plans to move and making plans for her, and you get the feeling she doesn't need to move, she doesn't want to move, she's content. However, that doesn't mean that she will reside there full time. It is understood that she will also spend time at Kellynch Lodge, Lady Russell's abode, as well as Uppercross, helping her sister Mary. Thankfully, Anne gets her forever home at the end of the novel when she marries Captain Wentworth. She finally gets a place she can call home, as well as a very pretty landaulet. What's there not to like? And then they ask a question at the end of this article. Have you experienced the sadness of leaving a beloved home behind like Mary Ann Dashwood? Are there any other house moves in Austen that resonate with you? Yes, I think we need to be really careful about what we do and when we move, especially to make the children comfortable. And that's one beautiful reason to homeschool, because they'll always have the same teachers and the same classroom and the same classmates and the same curriculum. You'll have your parents around you in the comfort of home, even if you have to move a lot. You have to be like a gypsy. Just take everything, just take your home with you and try to make it as much like the previous one if you liked it. Now, ladies, I also want to continue with a few other thoughts here. And one is, when you leave your home for your vacation, or let's say you're having a vacation at home, to come back to your home, you have to, this is just going to take a little longer to get out the door, unless you start the day before. You're going to have to make your home hospitable to come home to. Don't come home to a mess, because you'll just be sobbing with depression and distress from having come home from this wonderful holiday to this wreck of a house. So get your bathroom ready like you're expecting a guest, and then when you come in, act like a guest, like you're now coming to stay at this lodge. And you can get everything fixed up so that it's pleasant for you, and your beds are already made, your dishes have been put away, the floors are swept, everything is waiting for you. You might even put out something special that you've been looking forward to reading but have put off, that you didn't take with you on your vacation, or some other pleasant thing that you're looking forward to when you get home. Have you ever thought about that? And for me, it would just be a new cut of material or fabric, and I would probably set it somewhere so that I would see it when I came in, and the pattern on top of it, so it'd be a project that I'd be looking forward to. Or maybe I would leave a basket of goodies with some of that fancy tea and a little notebook, or just, some ideas for things to do when you get home, and the children will need that too. Of course, they'll be running around getting back familiar with their bed and bedroom and their toys, and but just think about children as being human beings too. They suffer sometimes from a letdown from a holiday. So make your home hospitable to your family when they get back. Get that already. So a vacation at home means take time to enjoy these little things at home, little things. And I got to thinking about that today. What would be a little thing that a person could enjoy at home and learn? And I remembered back in the day, when you could still see people or meet people when you were out or on a walk, or just people you knew that were avid bird watchers. Can you imagine? I don't think I've run into a bird watcher in forever. They knew what the bird looked like by the sound. They didn't even have to see it. They knew about this bird, and they had bird watcher books with them. Some of them were sketchers, and they would sketch out the bird. And they also knew the nighttime songs and the morning songs. And how many of our children know that? They go to school for years, public school for years, and know nothing about that. And so these are wonderful things that you can introduce as you homeschool your children, or as I homeschool you. These little bird watching diaries and these little hobbies and things. And so, but they were very fulfilling. And as I read to you yesterday, or in the previous video, from Helen Andelin's book, where she was talking about women who wanted to do something great. And she mentioned that to live her daily life is greatness. And I pondered on that, because just getting your house beautiful and ready, and she had a list of priorities, and these were the daily life things, and they were called the priority list. And I'll read it to you again. And number 1 is my appearance. Number 2, regular meals on time. House tidy, washing and ironing, imperative shopping, and then she has auxiliary things, which would be other things that were necessary to do. And she mentioned that small children are a priority, and that their care and their comfort. And then the secondary list, she said create a secondary list. This is a priority list, but she said create a secondary list. And I mentioned and thought about this even more later, that the reason to live your daily life becomes very difficult is people are so full of stress and adrenaline from listening to national problems and national news. And there was a time when the only news you would hear most of the time was your local, what was going on locally. And that was probably spread verbally. And so you knew those things, and that was enough stress. But now, of course, they inundate us with the stress of global news, which we can't do anything about. Whereas if you had local news and someone got sick or lost their home, then the neighborhood would just rush down there to help them, and you knew you could do something about it. But you can't do anything about some of these other things that go on. And it's awful hard for women to live their daily life. They can't do it because their bodies are so pumped full of stress, and the adrenaline is flowing, and they don't know what to do with the stress and the energy they have from the worry, and so they can't live their daily life. But this daily life that she mentions here is something that is great, because to accomplish it is hard. It is hard for us to do it, especially women. They like to help people, and they can get carried away helping people and forget about their own family and their own home. So let's listen to what she says after the priority list of the daily life. Next, create a secondary list. Clean the house, wash windows, sweep garage, sew, shop, teach children, time for self and others. Also make a third list for occasional jobs, special cleaning, organizing closets and drawers, seasonal shopping, and home decorating. To keep priorities, avoid time wasters. And we talked about this before. So I wanted to read that to you again, because I hadn't quite finished it. But she says to be well organized in getting your work done and keeping your commitments, use a calendar notebook. For information about a planning notebook, refer to the appendix. Work out wise priorities. Put first things first. To arrange priorities, list your 6 most important duties, then arrange them in the order of what really needs to be done first. And so this was quite a helpful little section on homemaking here. Now I want to read the part she wrote about feeding the family. Of all domestic tasks, other than the care of little children, the most urgent is feeding the family. Other things can wait. Now I remember that too, that it was top priority was getting the groceries and getting the meals, and sometimes even planning them. Other things can wait. Meals are in daily demand. To succeed, allow enough time. She mentions before, don't be rushed for time in homemaking. It takes time to cook a good meal. Don't skimp by preparing something in a last-minute rush. Instead of setting a time to serve the meal, set a time to begin the preparation. Also important is an attractive table setting with a tablecloth if possible. Many women fail in meal preparation. They go for the quick, easy meals with an emphasis on speed. There was a time when you could not walk past a woman's magazine. I don't know what all the names of them were, but they were at the checkout area of the grocery stores. And the titles and the headlines on the front of these magazines were quick and easy cleaning, quick and easy meals, quick and easy hairstyles. Just everything was quick and easy, and just putting them in the stress of a rush. Their goal is to get in and out of the kitchen in as short a time as possible, using the fewest dishes and making the least mess. They rely on frozen dinners, cold cuts, packaged mixes, canned foods, macaroni, and other quick and easy foods. Even worse, some families don't even have regular meals together, just snacking. One reason women go for the quick and easy meal is because they don't want to get the kitchen dirty. But what is a kitchen for? It is not for looking at admiringly, but for working in diligently. The homemaker may have pots and pans strewn around the kitchen, steam on the windows, dishes in the sink, and flour on her face, but the results, a good home-cooked meal, is the center of family life. Yes, we always felt that the kitchen was family life, and we had the kind of a farmhouse type kitchen where the table was where the kitchen was, and the food came quickly off of the hot place or the oven quickly onto the table. It wasn't so far away. That's been moved a little bit over more, but that was one of the reasons for that, is because it kept the food warm and the table was close to the kitchen. And I was going to make a comment about one of the points that she made here. Was one of the reasons that I don't take pictures of my kitchen and put them on my blog, is because it's the most used place in the house, and people in my family just go in there and get what they want, and they're always making themselves something, so there's no point in getting a picture. It would take a long time to stage it for a picture. So now I'm going to move to, since we've been talking about getting things done at home in the kitchen and homemaking, I wanted to read you a very interesting part of a sentence that I'm sure it means something completely different, but I got to thinking about how it helped me so much in asking God to help me accomplish something in the home. It might seem little and trivial to us to ask God to help us accomplish something in the home that's really bothering us, or that we really feel daunted by, or housekeeping is actually hard work. So, but listen to this, and it's from Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. I'm sure that it applies some way to us. Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think. He's able to do far more abundantly, that's God, than all we ask or think. So if you ask God to help you in some homemaking endeavor, then you ought to be able to stand back after you've finished it and think, I actually got more done than I expected, because it says here, when you ask him for something, he is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think. Have you ever thought about that word abundant? Well, that's my homeschool assignment for you. I want you to look that up. Look up abundant or abundantly and see what that means. He is able to far more abundantly do all that we ask or think. That means he knows what we're thinking. And if I have a daunting job in the house, like Emma said, there's a grim job to be done, I'll look at it for a few minutes and then ask God to help me, because there isn't anybody else around that will do it. And it's good, even as you get more vital, to keep in practice so that you don't fall down on the job or quit taking care of your home. It's not good to try to be too dependent on other people. The more you can do yourself, the better off you are, because you'll be independent of other people. And so you can have help. I mean, people come in and help, but you'll find that once you get dependent on someone helping you, they also want to boss you around. And if you've grown up independent, you don't want to be bossed too much. So here we have Molly, and she's been very disappointed in Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And she's been very disappointed because she's gotten left out now, and they're starting to she's kind of lost her life in a way, because her father's getting married. She's been whisked away to the Miss Brownings while he made all that arrangement, and then she went to stay with the Hamleys, and now she's with her future stepmother, who everyone's just arranging around both of them that she would go somewhere to the school at Ashcombe, and she doesn't want to go. And so let's see what happens here. And she was caught crying because her father was getting married, and Roger came upon her, remember? And he said it's best to just look on the bright side. Things might turn out for the best, he said. And so I want to continue this story here. But what were Molly's feelings at these last words of her father's? Her father had said, "I must leave her with you." He didn't want her at home at the current time, because he had other things he needed to do. He said, my dear, I told you of the reason why it does not do to have Molly at home just at present," said Mr. Gibson. For the more he knew of his future wife, the more he felt it necessary to remember that, with all her foibles, she would be able to stand between Molly and any such adventures as which had occurred lately with Mr. Cox, so that one of the good reasons for the step he had taken was always present to him. He wanted to get married so that his wife could stand between some of these admirers of Molly and her and protect her. But what were Molly's feelings at these last words of her father's? She had been sent from home for some reason, kept a secret from her, but told to this strange woman. Was there to be a perfect confidence between these two, and she would be forever shut out? Was she and what concerned her, though how she did not know, to be discussed between them for the future, and she to be kept in the dark? A bitter pang of jealousy made her heart sick. She might as well go to Ashcombe or anywhere else now. Thinking more of others' happiness than of her own was very fine, but it did not mean giving up her own individuality, quenching all the warm love, the true desires that made her herself. You know, the story so far just shows a lot of gains and a lot of losses for poor Molly. First, she has her wonderful father, and she has her friends, the Hamleys, all those friends. It was the father, the mother, and the two sons. They were all her friends. And then one by one, these are all, throughout the story, taken away from her in some way. Yet in this deadness lay her only comfort, or so it seemed. Wandering in such mazes, she hardly knew how the conversation went on. A third was indeed trumpery, where there was entire confidence between the two who were company from the other was shut out. She was positively unhappy, and her father did not appear to even see it. He was absorbed with his new plans and his new wife that was to be. But he did notice it, and was truly sorry for his little girl, only he thought that there was a greater chance for future harmony of the household if he did not lead Molly to define her present feelings. You know, all of us, I think, at one time found ourselves being placed somewhere or sent somewhere, or some plan made for us when we were really young, or even when we were older, where we didn't quite know how we got in it, but it was planned for us. And even some things that you don't even think of, how people like to manipulate and plan for you. Yet when Mr. Gibson had to leave, he took Molly's hands in his and held it there, in such a different manner to that in which Mrs. Kirkpatrick had done, and his voice softened to his child as he bade her good-bye. "God bless you, child," he said. Molly had held up all the day bravely. She had not shown anger or repugnance or annoyance, and so I had read that sentence to you last time because I admired it so much that she hadn't reacted. And then she saw the squire and Roger coming in from an after-dinner stroll in the garden, and hospitably anxious to help her to alight. Roger saw the state of things in an instant, and said, "My mother has been looking for you to come back for this last hour." He led the way to the drawing-room, but Mrs. Hamley was not there. The squire had stopped to speak to the coachman about one of the horses. They two were alone, and Roger said, "I'm afraid you've had a very trying day. I have thought of you several times, for I know how awkward these new relations are." "Thank you," she said, her lips trembling, and on the point of crying again. "I did try to remember what you said, and to think more of others, but it is so difficult sometimes. You know it is, don't you?" "Yes," he said gravely. He was gratified by her simple confession of having borne his words of advice in his mind, and tried to act up to them. So, this is just a lot of Molly's emotions, things changing in her life. We've got to be really careful about that with our own families too. I think it's a great lesson there, because I will tell you that as a child, and my own children, they appreciated us telling them where we were going, what we were doing, and asking them questions about what they would like to do, and not just planning something and then shoving them into it when they weren't mentally prepared, but to be able for them to be able to be included in the decision, rather than getting them into something that might not be good for them or emotionally. And that's hard to explain, but a real understanding parent will do that. And I know that those of you who were brought up with autocratic parents, you didn't have any say in anything. You just went along with whatever color they wanted to paint the wall or anything. You didn't get to say anything about it. But in our homeschool family, we did it a little different, because homeschool is an interaction. It's a lot more interaction, and it's the family working together for each other. We're all on a goal together, for harmony and for ministry, and for the testimony of having a beautiful home and a cohesive family. And so we did have more to say about, the children had more to say about things, and we did it with curriculum too, because if we got a book that they weren't responding to, it they were frustrated with, or they just didn't look forward to it, it didn't make them happy or cheer them up, we just take the book and put it away, and then maybe years later get it out again, and then they could understand it, or they liked it better, or they could tolerate it. But we didn't even force curriculum on them that we could tell they weren't responding to happily. So ladies, I hope that this has helped in some way for you to get through your day, and that you got something done while you were listening. And I wanted to thank you again for coming, because it motivates me. Thank you for all you do for me. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your comments. They are wonderful. And so I love you. Stay close to God, and I'll see you later. Bye.